If I were to ask you, what is TF2's most annoying weapon, what would you say? Would you say the Vaccinator, being able to block 75% of damage from the three main types of damage? Or maybe the Scorch Shot, a weapon that doesn't require aim and can be spammed down a choke point to no end. How about the Loose Cannon, having insane knockback and damage output? Those are all pretty good examples of the most hated weapon, but in my opinion, that award goes to the Reserve Shooter. The Reserve Shooter was added on June 23, 2011 under the Ubercharge update alongside the Liberty Launcher, Market Gardener, and Jumper Jeep Cap. The Reserve Shooter on release was a secondary weapon for the soldier. It grants the soldier mini crits when a target is launched in the air by explosions, grapple hooks, or rocket packs. I don't know what a rocket pack is. It deploys 20% faster, and the only drawback is that it has negative 34% clip size. The weapon itself was received pretty well by the community, making the soldier launch their targets in the air for some sweet mini crits, or if they're a demo or soldier trying to retreat, you could finish them off with the Reserve Shooter. And for a bit, there was no problems with the Reserve Shooter. Until only 5 months later. October 13th, 2011, the Reserve Shooter became a weapon equipable by the Pyro. For what reason, I don't know myself. Whenever I try to look it up, it's not documented anywhere. But you may be asking yourself,
But Niels, the Pyro doesn't use any explosive projectile. I mean, he obviously has an air blast, but that's difficult to manage.
well, what if I told you? You could air blast them in the air for free mini crits without the use of explosions. Now, I tried to find clips of this in action since I was like 12, 13 back then, and I didn't have that strong of a computer to record footage while maintaining a solid FPS. Anyway, as you can see in these clips from the past, it is extremely easy and insanely powerful to use as Pyro, and there was no true way to counter it. I mean, of course you could kill the Pyro, but by the time they're that close, they've already air blasted you in the air and killed you. It was mainly considered a crutch weapon. For clarity, a crutch weapon is a direct upgrade to stock that compensates the lack of skill of a bad player, with some minor disadvantages to stock. For example, the Black Box. That's considered a crutch. Same thing with the Dead Ringer before and after the nerf. And the Reserve Shooter was in this category. But that was about to change. In 2016, there was an up-and-coming update called the Jungle Inferno update, one of TF2's successful updates and last major update. There was a vote between who would get the update, Heavy or Pyro. I personally voted for Heavy because, well, I hated Pyro, and still kinda do. And at the same time, I didn't understand the problems that Pyro had. But most of the population of TF2 voted for Pyro for the much needed fixes. And one of the many fixes was the Reserve Shooter. Going through the update list, they fixed a lot of stuff, but what we're mainly focusing on is the Reserve Shooter. Here's the note from the dev team as they talk about their decision.
Pyros are too easily able to take advantage of this weapon's primary feature via air blast, i.e. no penalty on-demand launching of their target, and so their damage potential can greatly exceed that of the other classes that also use this weapon. Rather than take a heavier-handed approach to solve this, we've instead decided to remove air blast as a source for mini crits.
So that's where the Reserve Shooter for the Pyro ends. But the weird thing is, you can still equip it on the Pyro. Now, I'm really bad at Pyro, so my friend Elleapple is here to talk about the now and what's wrong with the weapon in 2023. Take it away.
Hey everyone, Resident Pyro main Elleapple, here to explain why the Reserve Shooter is a downgrade to the other two shotguns at Pyro's disposal. It all really just comes down to the weapon's only downside, a minus 34% clip penalty, which means it only has 4 shots in its clip, compared to stock in the Panic Attack 6 shots. I've spent a good 100 hours of my admittedly new time as a Pyro main, playing exclusively Degreaser Panic Attack combo Pyro, so you could say I'm a bit of an expert at using shotguns as the funny fire class, and the Reserve Shooter's clip penalty f***ing sucks. Pyro is a class built on speed, not movement speed like Scout though, speedy kills. Pyro is an ambush class through and through. Any engagement in TF2 is easier if you have to jump on your enemy, that's true, but this is especially true for Pyro. When ambushing a large group of enemies as a pyro with a shotgun, you ideally want as many shots loaded as you can have in order to take out the group of unprepared players rapidly fleeing your flames. But unfortunately for you, you've decided to equip the reserve shooter. Better not miss any of those shots, or you'll be hearing the click of an empty clip far sooner than you'll realize, especially if you're used to your other two choices of gun. Clip penalty aside, the reserve shooter sits at an awkward middle ground between the other two shotguns. It has a 20% deploy speed bonus, which is nice in a pinch, especially when using the stock flamethrower, but that's a fraction of the deploy speed of the panic attack. It does lack the spread-related stats of the panic attack, but the clip size prevents you from consistently firing it as much as you would stock, so if that's what you're looking for in a secondary, you'd use that. If I want a fast deploy weapon for bursting down enemies at close range, I'd use the panic attack, and if I want a consistent mid-range option, I'd use stock. What I will say to its benefit is that it's still a shotgun, which means you can do shotgun things with it, shoot enemies to death. Just make sure to reload more often. I haven't even talked about the weapon's main upside yet, and that's for a good reason. It never f***ing happens. Popping an enemy up into the air with a reflected rocket isn't easy, and even if you manage to do that, most of the time they are too far away for a shotgun to be useful. If you've managed to reflect a rocket close enough to be in a shotgun's effective range and pop that person up into the air, they're dead no matter what damage-dealing secondary you have equipped, if they didn't already die to the reflect. The only way I can see you consistently getting mini-crits from the reserve shooter is if you queue up with a friend and have them play soldier for you in order to pop enemies up into the air. Which, other than making for a funny TF2 idea, isn't really that viable in your average game. If I had been a pyro main in the weapon's glory days, I'm sure I'd look back on the reserve shooter fondly, but I wasn't. So all I see is a mediocre weapon well past its prime for the class. Back to you, Nils.
Hey, thank you for watching. I have a couple things to say before the video ends. One of them is thank you for the support. I gained like, I don't know, 30 to 40 subscribers in the past couple of weeks, which is amazing. And I'm really grateful for that. Secondly, I want to make this clear right now. I don't have an upload schedule. So I'll upload and post whenever I want to, and whatever ideas come to mind, I'll post them as well. But, you know, I'll keep you updated in the community tab. But, before the video ends, thank you to Jkrep for doing the nerd voice, and thank you to Elleapple for, well, being the feature. And that's it. I'll see you guys next time.